if I don't jump, I can't fly. So that's pretty important to notice because it's just like running. If you have a lot of running speed and you run off a cliff or whatever, then he's still in the running animation, and of course you can't break out into a fly while in the running animation. But the game is kind of not confused, but it's this state is like a mixture of running and jumping because you can control, but you can't break out into a fly, and that's important to note. Now, another important jumping mechanic that you should know is gaining a lot of speed from loops. Let's say I'm just holding right and I'm going through the loop and I like try to get up here and I will not make the jump. If I instead try to like spin dash, I have a little bit more speed, but I can't control myself when I'm rolling. Like just like before, I can't accelerate while moving, except when moving in a downward slope. So if there were flat ground right after this, then I would be in trouble. So what you most likely always want to do is to spin dash into a loop, and then right about here, or here, you should jump, and you will gain a lot of speed, and you will break out into a run instead. And you will keep that speed because you are running. So if you time that correctly, you will gain more speed than you would from just running around in the circle or rolling around even. So it's important to learn that timing, or at least visually see it. Because if you do it wrong, like that doesn't help at all. Except for the fact that you're actually like, I don't know, running. If you jump too early, then you have a small chance of doing this. And you really don't want that. That's like pretty bad. So learn the timing and jump in the loops because if I just run from here and you can see how much speed I gained from that last uh, loop. It does require a little bit of speed to begin with though. Uh, but basically this kind of slope is a bit different from this kind of slope. You can see if I just stand here, like I said before, I will accelerate to a certain point and then I will be capped at a certain speed. And if I try to go up here, the slope will just stop me. I can't just like in Sonic 2006 walk up this loop, you know? Because this game is actually good. I need some speed to be able to get up there. But also, what this means is that this is like if I have some height and I try to jump down on this slope right here, even though it's kind of uh, uh, this slope isn't very inclined. It's not very steep at least. And right here, like this slope is on the same level as the slope is about here or something. Uh, but since this slope is curved, I can land on the back part or maybe a little bit further ahead, and it will be the same as a certain slope in Marble Garden. Maybe you remember these slopes. If you fall, you'll gain a lot of speed from uh, falling on those. As long as you don't like go the wrong way. You can see how much speed I gained right there. And that's basically what's happening with those loops. That you land on a very steep part of the loop, and you will gain a lot of speed from that, and then you just keep it uh, to the flat ground. The loops in Ice Cap is a little bit buggy. I don't really like them. If you try to jump off of them, let's find the loop. Like just a regular loop. Here's a regular loop. Like, I don't know if you notice, but it's more round than usual. So they can be a bit buggy sometimes. Because sometimes you will jump and you will stop. Because the game thinks that the incline is too much, and it will think it is a wall, and you will just be stopped. And that's another thing about slopes, that if it doesn't have like a curved form, but it's a sharp turn instead, it is a high probability that you're going to bump into it. Like, let's say I were to spin dash right here and I run and I go up this thing right here. That works all fine, right? Like I'm running on the ground and stuff. But if I'm spin dashing from right here, okay, that didn't work because I broke out into a run, and now the game is just stupid. If I have a certain speed, uh, the the game will just stop me from going up the slope, and right now it doesn't want to be cooperative. Well, you can see it the first few times, like right there. It just stops me. That's because the difference between this ground and this ground is too high. So if you have a specific speed, it will just be like a wall. Another thing about another thing I can't really explain is if you watch my controller right now, I will hold right, and you can see how Tails won't break. He will not stop until his velocity has reached a certain lowest value. Like normally he should be stopping about here, right? I mean, that's what happens if I do like this. Or wait, perhaps not. But I'm holding right the whole way now, and he should be braking right here, right? But he has to like walk a bit, and depending uh, on your speed, you're going to go a bit further or not. Like if I were to jump from down here, or up here. I can't really explain what's happening, like, you have to experiment with it yourself. Basically, if you, like, walk... I don't know, I can't explain it. It's just like a quirky thing with the engine. You can see I had a bit more speed there, so I went a bit further. It's pretty odd, though. So it's something you want to remember. Alright, next topic is uh, speed shoes. And just to combine everything we have learned so far, let's say most of you probably know there's like speed shoes up here, right? But usually you would have to like break this rock or something, then bounce here and jump on that. Or I don't know if you're Tailsme, you like to fly up. But if we combine everything we have learned so far, if I want to spin dash up there, I can't just spin dash, you know, I won't gain enough height from that. So I have to jump too, and I have to hold the jump button. Okay. Otherwise I won't gain the correct amount of height. And notice how I went too far to the right there. If I jump too early, I'm going to go more to the right. And if I jump more late, if that's possible, I will go more to the left. You can see there. So that's another like angle of the slope that matters again. So if you have a lot of speed and you jump at the correct time, you will get the correct height, but you can't control your character. So what you have to do is you have to interrupt the jump with a fly or flight, and then you can get up here. And the way the speed shoes work is basically that it changes your acceleration and your max speed on ground to like, I don't know, double or something like that. But it doesn't change your physics, spin dash physics. So even if you have a speed shoes, spin dashing won't help you. So basically you never want to do a spin dash when you are under the effect of speed shoes. There's another quirky thing about speed shoes. I think it's a glitch. I don't think it's intended. But anyways, let's say I would take the speed shoes and then I run over here to the water and I go up. Now you can still hear the music from the speed shoes. Like they're still under effect, but the physics I gain from them, like the increased acceleration and stuff, all that is gone. So basically, going into water and going back up annuls anything the speed shoes does. So water is something you want to avoid if you have speed shoes. Invincibility, I'm just gonna mention quick. It protects you from spikes, it protects you from attacks. You can still get crushed, you can still fall out of bounds and die. You can still time out. So just keep that in mind. You probably already know that. Another thing about water, if I'm going to continue on that topic, is that everything is slower underwater, obviously. Like, you can't run as fast, your acceleration is slower, you will fly or swim not as fast as in the air. Uh, However, spin dashing is actually faster underwater than on the ground. So that might be something you want to remember. Uh, Now for the objects. And there's two types of things in the world. Like, first of all, you have like the ground you're walking on, obviously. And then you have objects, like this thing right here. And let's say you're on a slope or an edge. If you hold down, you're able to crouch like this. And even if you're facing the other way, everyone will, all the characters will like turn around. And that's pretty irritating because let's say you're like flying up here and you want to spin dash quickly, then he's going to turn around like that. And you're just going to go down again. That's pretty irritating. Uh, on objects, you can like, of course, still like spin dash and stuff. But on the edge, you can't. And basically the way I understand it is that objects are Sonic 2 physics. So I think in Sonic 2 you can't be on an edge and spin dash, but in Sonic 3 you can. Uh, Another thing that is adopted from Sonic 2 regarding the objects is that normally they did something in Sonic and Knuckles that you can still move a bit and crouch. You don't have to be completely still in order to do a spin dash. And that's very useful if you're like on a slope and you just like want to, I don't know, you run up or you want to spin dash or, you know, whatever. It's useful, at least. But when you're on an object, you have to be almost completely still. So you can see the difference from standing on an object like this and doing it on the ground. Like I'm gliding. I'm gliding a bit as opposed to here. And that's very irritating because sometimes you land on an object. Like right here, I might want to spin dash, but I have to wait so long for Tails to stop. So it will take a lot of time, and like the object might break, or I will waste time or whatever. Another quirky thing about objects is that when they're part of the background, or when they're like supposed to blend in with the background, I mean obviously that is supposed to blend in, while this thing is supposed to stand out. But they're all objects and they all have the same uh, properties. Let's say I go down here, I want to spin dash. That is infinitely harder because, oops, I have to be still, and if I misjudge in any way, I will do a jump instead, like that. If you're practiced enough, you can usually like learn to stop yourself completely before stop yourself completely before like for the example these things break. Right there I turned around without my intention being so. Alright, so the second thing about objects that they try to blend into the background is that they, I don't know if they were lazy or if that's just how the programming works. But let's say I stand right here. You can see I'm like, right now I'm standing on this object right here. And you can see that there's like a little air between me and the ground. See if I frame advance, it's going to break. And then right there I dropped down because the objects were no longer there. Uh, the irritating thing about this is that, let's say you have some speed, and you're coming from like over here, and you want to jump. Maybe you could see I was trying to jump right there. It won't work because the game acts as if you're in the air, which you are, but because of the object. And that's irritating, for example, right here, when you want to jump up there. If you time your jump wrong, then Tails won't jump at all. Let's see. Now I won't fail it. Right there, it happened. And that's because this thing right here is an object. And there's ground right here, and there's ground right here. You can see like I'm bumping up right about here. Like it seems like it's flat ground, but it's like balancing because there's an edge here. And if you come with speed, you're gonna drop that distance down. And there's a bunch of places in the game where that is irritating, and you have to compensate for that. Uh, the the next thing I want to explain is timers, and there's two stage of two types of timers, and one of them have a variation. If I were to go into a stage, let's say oh, let's go to Sandopolis. Alright, so right now I started pushing the block at 6 seconds. Alright? And this thing is going down. If I instead start pushing it at, I don't know, 8 seconds, then it's probably going to be either down or going up. Yeah, it was down and it was going up. And that's because the position of this object is dependent on a stage timer. So basically it takes the timer up here, and that determines the position of this object right here. Oh wait, I don't know if I can go back now. The thing about stage timers is that they carry over from the acts. So let's say I'm going to beat this stage right now. Don't mind the glitch I'm trying to do. It's just to beat the game faster. Or the stage faster. I will explain all the glitches that is useful in a speedrunning or a speedrun of this game later on today in another video. Alright, so This guy is a jerk. He's like all slow and shit. Another funny thing about him is that he can't damage me because Tails is too short. So like, I don't know. He won't hit me unless like his hitbox is like on his body. So his bum is the only thing that can like actually hurt me. So when I want to do this, I have to actually jump into him. Alright, so right now I clear the stage, right? And I cleared it in 2 minutes and 2 seconds. Now you can see that this thing is going down, right? Let's say I was waiting for a few seconds. Because it doesn't matter if the timer is going or if time is passing. It's about the frames after you enter the stage or something like that. Basically, it's a global timer. Now you can see it's up and going up. So that's an example of a stage-timed object that carries over the act. I think all of them do, but don't quote me on that. There's a variation of this type of timer, and it's called a random timer, or I call it a random timer at least. You may you may call it whatever you want. And basically, let's say I'm playing this Sky Sanctuary, right? And there's this long cutscene that always takes, I don't know, 23 seconds or something. And you wait for Knuckles, who is more pink and has yellow shoes for some reason. And you can see that this thing was going down, and it was almost at the lowest point. If I do the stage again... Oh, I paused. And we have to wait for this cutscene again, which is pretty boring. Right, so it was still going down, but it was a bit higher up. And the reason for that is that this thing is based on a stage timer. However, the initial position for the object is always going to be fixed. For regular timed objects, the position is always the same when the act starts or the stage starts. But this thing is random, and like with Tails, it doesn't really matter. But unless it's at its lowest point and you like accidentally jump into it. But a Sonic, it can waste a couple of seconds. So that's pretty irritating. Uh, there's not a bunch of them, but they do exist. It's the same thing with the swings in Angel Island. The last uh, timed object, or type of timed object there is a screen position timed object. And that's stuff like enemies and some of the objects in the game. So let's say we do Lava Reef 1 as Knuckles, because it's pretty easy to show what I'm talking about. Alright, so no matter what the timer up there is showing, if I spin dash right here, this thing is going to kill me or almost kill me. However, if I go right over here, and like wait or whatever, it's going to be at another position, and it's based on time. But if I go from here, you can always... It is always going to kill me no matter what I do. And the reason for that is that the object right here isn't loaded into the memory until I'm right about here or something. And so I would say maybe uh, about exactly one screen away. So if this thing is at the very right part, then it's loaded when I'm at the very left part, when I'm standing right here. And that is it. So in many stages, it is important to know what is a screen position object and what is a stage timed object, because these things are stage timed, and this thing is based on screen position. So if I'm coming here and I'm doing a speed run, I know that I don't want to do a spin dash from here. Uh, but instead I want to like just jump and take it easy and then go under it. But then I know based on what time the timer is, I can do a spin dash here or not, because it will stop me or it won't stop me. So that is important to note. Oops. And there's a bunch of things like this lava is based on timer. And I think these things that shoot fireballs are based on screen position. I'm pretty sure. So you will have to like learn what is a stage timed object and what is a screen position based object. All enemies, like I said before, is based on screen position. So they are always going to be behaving the same way if you get there the same amount of speed every time. Uh, One other thing I want to mention is triggers. And I'm going to activate debug mode for this so you can actually see the trigger. Uh, by the way, Knuckles can't start uh, gliding uh, from a fall in this stage, but Tails can. So like Knuckles has to go to the left side and then go back to the right if he wants to go up here. Alright. So I'm going to make a save state right here so I can show you what I'm talking about. You can notice right now that this thing is solid and this thing is not solid. Like, I can't even land on it even if I wanted to. The thing that's causing that is that I haven't hit the trigger that makes that thing solid. So if I go right up here, I start to spin dash up, I will just go down again. But if I hit the trigger, which is right about here, I'll go up instead, and I don't have debug activated. Let me just get the bug, because I can physically show you the trigger. I'm not going to go over how to get debug and level select, you can just search on the internet to watch what I'm doing right now. See, that's a typical example of Tails turning around, being a douche. Alright, so now we got debug. So, if I activate debug, you can see the trigger right here. It's like it looks like a bunch of rings, but they're like invisible. And as soon as I touch this trigger, this thing becomes solid, and this thing is not solid anymore. And it works the same way with loops. If I go like loops, if you think from a programmer's perspective, this thing isn't solid, then this thing is solid, and then this thing is solid, and that thing is not solid. And that might be pretty difficult to program, but the way they solve that is that they have this trigger right here, and this trigger right here, so that no matter when you enter, this thing is not going to be solid if you come from the left side. It is possible if you're right here and you do a full spin dash, it is possible to, as long as that thing isn't solid, it is possible to not hit the trigger and bump into the wall. But in any case, when you go up this thing, then this wall is solid and this wall is not solid. Then you go up here, and you can see you hit the trigger right here, and when you hit the trigger, then this thing is not solid and this thing is solid. But it only works if you're actually on the ground in the loop. So if I were to jump right there, I miss the trigger and the left wall is not solid. So if you want to do like that kind of jump, you have to be very specific about not jumping too early. Right here you can utilize another technique where you use the... Oh wait, let me... Alright. Like I said before about jumping, if you jump you can't control yourself in the air. But instead of like going up and down, it is actually faster to jump and release jump at the right height, and then like fly up. It's hard to do it now because I only have one jump button. I'm used to 3. But yeah, like that. It's faster than going, like let's say you're up here. Like, that's a decent amount of seconds you have to wait. So that's a pretty useful technique. Another technique I haven't talked about actually. Oh. Debug. Is that when you're on a downward slope and there's some ground you can run on later, you should pretty much always jump. Because so you don't lose your speed, you know. This spring is very weird for me. Sometimes it gives me extra speed, sometimes it gives me slower speed if I spin dash as I go down. So you might want to experiment with that yourself. Alright, so the last thing I'm going to cover in the engine tutorial is in-game versus real-time. So let's say I'm speedrunning Angel Island 1, and I go up here and I get to choose, and I bump into the ceiling so that I go faster. I don't want to hit that spring, but whatever. I jump off every loop, so I gain a lot of speed. Yeah, alright, here's a basic fighting technique. Basically, when you bump into him, he's going to like push you left, right? And if you have upward speed, uh, he's going to push you back down. And if you have downward speed, he's going to push you back up. So if you can time your jump right there, then you're able to bounce on him pretty quickly from a pretty high height. Right there I short jumped, so... And then roll down the hill, jump over that. Jump off the slope so I gain some speed. Spin dash off that. Time my jump so I like actually do jump. Right here there's like the object I was talking about earlier. And now boss fight. Alright, that was a bad jump. See, that's a timing thing. Alright, so right now I cleared this stage in 104 and I get 10,000 points. The counter is subtracting 100 every frame. So if you have 10,000 points, then that's 100 frames. And that would take maybe a little less than 1.5 seconds. However, if you're faster than a minute, then it's going to take... You're going to get 50,000 points. And 50,000 points is equivalent to 500 frames. And 500 frames is like 7 seconds or something. So people have timed this, and the value they got was that if your time is between 53 and 59, it is worth it to wait until the timer is 100 until you kill a boss or clear the act in some way in order to avoid the time bonus, and that will be faster in real time. In-game time, however, it will always be faster to actually clear the stage as fast as possible. And in-game time, if I do this again... well, that was stupid. Oh my god, the emulator. Alright. Alright, so right now, maybe there's some stage timer in the next stage that I want to manipulate. And I can see my time here is 104, and then I know, okay, maybe I have to wait 3 seconds for the cycle to be correct, so that the object is in the right position when I expect to be there. In-game time, what you would do is just delay, like this, like I did before in Sandopolis. Maybe it delays 3 seconds, and the in-game time will be the same. But now I'm able to clear the next stage a little bit faster, because I don't have to wait for some random object to be in the right position. Uh, Real time, however, I wouldn't recommend doing that because let's say you're in the stage and like you want to, you're Sonic, you want to time this thing to come down at the right time. Well, if you do a single mistake before that, then you're gonna mess up the cycle anyways. Like, let's say you're in here, you want to spin dash and do a jump and use the bubbles if you're Sonic. Like, you jump. Ah, it's hard to play as Sonic when you're Tails. Like, well, anyways, yeah, jump up there, jump on that, bounce, and get up there. Let's say you were doing a bad spin dash, and you boom. Well, now you've destroyed the cycle anyway, so now you just waited around for nothing. So I would recommend not doing that if you're doing a race or whatever. But in-game, like most people count records as in-game time, so you should, if you're doing runs, you should pay attention to the in-game timer more. And if you're playing a race, you might want to consider manipulating the timer so you get a lower score, so you don't have to wait around for 7-8 seconds for nothing. And I think that concludes all of the engine tutorial. So I thank you for watching, and I hope you're going to watch the glitch tutorial that I also have done. And I'll see you around.